It is no secret that aliens and UFOs are a huge discussion topic in podcasts.
Are the aliens real or not?
So today we're going to take a look at the craziest alien stories from podcasts. First up, we have Joe Rogan talking about Bob Lazar on the FLAGRANT podcast.
Are the aliens real or not?
Tell me, bro.
I don't know.
We're gonna find out though.
You know the first time we ever hung out? This is after we did the podcast.
Yeah, tell them.
We went out to dinner.
I don't think anybody knows about this.
They might not. You tell me, hey, what are you doing for dinner tonight after I do the pod? And I'm like, well, shit, I don't have any plans on in LA. He goes, well, come to dinner with me at the, what is it, the all-you-can-eat Brazilian restaurant? What's it called?
Fogo de Chao.
Fogo de Chao. He goes, come to Fogo de Chao. And when you type it, I don't even know what food we're eating. I gotta Google it, right? And it's like, okay, it's a Brazilian restaurant. So we go, and you're like, we're gonna come with Bob. I go, okay, cool. And we go with Bob Lazar. This is the guy who was working on the UFOs.
Yeah, and I explained to you who he was because I wanted you to get a read on him. Yeah. Because I wanted you to decide whether or not you thought he was bullshit. This is a guy that was allegedly, according to him, he back-engineered alien spacecrafts at Area S4. Mm-hmm. It was a guy who worked for Lockheed Martin, and he claims that he worked on these UFOs. And we all went out to dinner.
Mm-hmm. Fogo de Chao.
And we're sitting there, and Andrew and I are cutting meat and eating and just talking.
I got my green light on. They keep coming around.
This guy.
Joe's like, put the fucking red light on. You had enough steak or whatever the fuck. I don't know the rules of Fogo de Chao yet.
You get a green card. It's the best fucking place ever if you love meat. You have a green card on one side and it's red on the other side. And so when you want to keep that food rolling, you keep that green up. Yeah. But Andrew's, it's like fucking sausages are coming. He's taking chicken legs. Yeah. And I go, you got to flip it over if you got to tap out. They'll give you a break. Yeah. So you flip it over. It's a good system. So we're sitting there eating, and Bob Lazar is detailing to us shit that he couldn't even talk about on the podcast.
Wild.
And explaining like what they were trying
begrudgingly, by the way.
Begrudgingly.
And that's what kind of convinced me. He was like, I don't care to argue about this or debate about this. Like, if you don't believe me, it's fine. I don't need to be here. Like, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Remember he kept saying that?
Yeah.
And then he was like, this is what I experienced.
You gotta care a little bit. You dedicate your whole life to this.
No, he didn't dedicate his life. Like, he was an engineer,
He was only there for a short period of time, and here's where it gets wild. Want to hear the whole story?
Yeah.
He had top secret clearance because he has to work on these crafts, allegedly, according to him. But because of that, they had to tap into his phones. They had to monitor all of his discussions. Like, if he's selling information to the Russians, they got to, okay. So during that time period, his wife is having an affair. Oh, wow. And they kill his top secret clearance and suspend him during this time period, and with no explanation, because they think he'll be emotionally unstable. Wow. And you can't have a guy like that working on fucking UFOs. Yeah. So they don't tell him, though. They don't tell him his wife is cheating on him. So he's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and he brings friends out into the mountains to view the launches of these UFOs, because they're on a very specific schedule, and he knows the schedule. So he takes these people out deep into the Nevada desert, which is now the area that he took people to. You can't even go there anymore. It's now off limits. But at the time, you can go there, and he was watching with his friends. They were filming these fucking things flying around in like these preposterous ways that no airplane could fly.
Did you see any of the videos?
I've seen it, but you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Like, you're looking at lights. Like, it could be anything.
That was the Elon thing. I think Elon
You-
said some shit like, why don't they have better camera footage of aliens?
Yeah.
Like
But they do. He's not totally correct. The FLIR footage that they have from the David Fravor, the Commander David Fravor had one of the most impactful UFO video encounters that's ever happened. It was off the coast of San Diego, and they found this thing that moved from 50,000 feet above sea level to 50 in less than a second. They don't know what it is. They have no idea what it was. But it was actively monitoring them because it blocked all of their tracking devices, which is technically an act of war, and then just fucking just took off, gone, and went back to their cat point, which is the place where they had like a designated spot where they're supposed to meet up during this mission. Because what they're doing with this mission is a training mission, and they had a dedicated. And that fucking UFO went to that spot. It's like, I know where you're going, bitch. Whoa. And then took off again and gone. Wow. And then when they relayed this to the Nimitz, he was explaining how the people that were working there were like, we see these things like every couple of weeks. We have no idea what the fuck it is. We don't know what.
So you're 100% convinced UFOs?
I'm not. because it could be a drone that they don't tell those people about. It could be something that the government's working on.
Next up, guest Sam Harris talks about UFOs and aliens on the Lex Fridman podcast.
In raising a question that I'm going to be talking to you, a lot of people brought up this topic, probably because Eric Weinstein talked to Joe Rogan recently and said that he and you were contacted by folks about UFOs. Can you clarify the nature of this contact? Can you, that you were contacted about?
I've got very little to say on this. I mean, he has much more to say. I think he went down this rabbit hole further than I did, which wouldn't surprise anyone. He's got much more of a taste for this sort of thing than I do. But I think we were contacted by the same person. It wasn't clear to me who this person was or how this person got my cell phone number. They didn't seem. It didn't seem like we were getting punked. I mean, the person seemed credible to me.
And they were talking to you about the release of different videos on UFOs.
Yeah, and this is when there was a flurry of activity around this. So there was a big New Yorker article on UFOs, and there was rumors of congressional hearings, I think, coming, and there were the videos that were being debunked or not. And so this person contacted both of us, I think, around the same time. And I think he might have contacted Rogan or other. Eric is just the only person I've spoken to about it, I think, who I know was contacted. And what happened is the person kept, writing a check that he didn't cash. Like he kept saying, okay, next week I'm going to, I understand this is sounding spooky and you have no reason to really trust me, but next week I'm going to put you on a Zoom call with people who you will recognize, and they're going to be former heads of the CIA and people who just you're going to within 5 seconds of being on the Zoom call you'll know this is not a hoax. And I said, great, just let me know, just send me the Zoom link, right? And I went. That happened maybe 3 times. There was just one phone conversation, and then it was just texts, just a bunch of texts. And I think Eric spent more time with this person, and I haven't spoken to him about it. I know he spoke about it publicly, but so I it's not that my bullshit detector ever really went off in a big way. It's just the thing never happened, and I lost interest.
So you made a comment, which is interesting, that you ran which I really appreciate, that you ran the thought experiment of saying, okay, maybe we do have alien spacecraft, or just the thought experiment that aliens did visit.
Yeah.
And then this very kind of nihilistic, sad thought that it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect your life. Can you explain that?
Well, no, I think many people noticed this. I mean, this was a sign of how crazy the news cycle was at that point, right? Like we had COVID and we had Trump, and I forget when the UFO thing was really kicking off, but it just seemed like no one had the bandwidth to even be interested in this. It's like I was amazed to notice in myself that I wasn't more interested in figuring out what was going on. It's like, and I considered, okay, wait a minute. If this is true, this is the biggest story in anyone's lifetime. I mean, contact with alien intelligence is, by definition, the biggest story in anyone's lifetime in human history. Why isn't this just totally captivating? And it not only was it not totally captivating, it was just barely rising to the level of my being able to pay attention to it. And I view that, I mean, one, as a to some degree an understandable defense mechanism against the bogus claims that have been made about this kind of thing in the past. The general sense is probably bullshit, or it probably has some explanation that is purely terrestrial and not surprising. And there is somebody who, what's his name? Is it Mick West? I forget. Is it a YouTuber?
Mick West,
yeah.
He debunks stuff.
Yeah, I have since seen some of those videos. I mean, now this is going back still at least a year, but some of those videos seem like fairly credible debunkings of some of the optical evidence. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that. Like there was a fairly credulous 60 Minutes piece that came out around that time, looking at some of that video, and it was the very video that he was debunking on YouTube, and his video only had like 50,000 views on it or whatever. But again, it seemed like a fairly credible debunking. I haven't seen debunkings of his debunkings, but
I think there is. But he's basically saying that there is possible explanations for it,
right?
And usually in these kinds of contexts, if there's a possible explanation, even if it seems unlikely, is going to be more likely than an alien civilization visiting us.
Yeah, it's the extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence principle, which I think is generally true.
Well, with aliens, I think there should be some humility about what they would look like when they show up. But I tend to think they're already here.
The amazing thing about this AI conversation, though, is that we're talking about a circumstance where we would be designing the aliens.
Yeah.
And there's every reason to believe that eventually this is going to happen. So I'm not at all skeptical about the coming reality of the aliens, and we're going to build them.
Now, here's the thing. Does this apply to when superintelligence shows up? Will this be trending on Twitter for a day, and then we'll go on to complain about something Sam Harris once again said on his podcast next day? Yeah. You tend to trend on Twitter, even though you're not on Twitter, which is great.
Yeah, I haven't noticed. I mean, I did notice when I was on, but
did you have this concern about AGI, basically same kind of thing, that we would just look the other way? Is there something about this time where even like World War III, which has been throwing around very casually, concerningly so, even that, the news cycle wipes that away?
Yeah. Well, I think we have this general problem that we can't make certain information, even, unequivocally certain information, emotionally salient. Like we respond quite readily to certain things. I mean, as we talked about, we respond to the little girl who fell down a well. I mean, that gets 100% of our emotional resources. But the abstract probability of nuclear war, right? Even a high probability, even an intolerable probability, even if we put it at 30%, right? It's just like that's Russian roulette with a gun with 3 chambers, and it's aimed at the heads, not only your head but your kid's head and everyone's kid's head, and it's just 24 hours a day. And I mean, I think people who have, this pre-Ukraine, I think the people who have made it their business to professionally to think about the risk of nuclear war and to mitigate it, people like Graham Allison or William Perry, I think they were putting the ongoing risk. I mean, just the risk that we're going to have a proper nuclear war at some point in the next generation. People were putting it at something like 50%, right? That we're living with this sword of Damocles over our heads. Now, you might wonder whether anyone can have reliable intuitions about the probability of that kind of thing, but the status quo is truly alarming. I mean, we've got ICBMs on. I mean, leave aside smaller exchanges and tactical nukes and how we could have a world war, based on incremental changes. We've got the biggest bombs aimed at the biggest cities in both directions, and it's old technology, right? And it's vulnerable to some lunatic deciding to launch or misreading, bad data. And we know we've been saved from nuclear war, I think at least twice by, Soviet submarine commanders deciding, I'm not going to pass this up the chain of command, right? It's like, this is almost certainly an error, and it turns out it was an error. And it's and we need people to, I mean, in that particular case, like he saw, I think it was 5 what seemed like 5 missiles launched from the U.S. to Russia, and he reasoned if America was going to engage in a first strike, they'd launch more than 5 missiles, right? So this has to be fictional. And then he waited long enough to decide that it was fictional. But the probability of a nuclear war happening by mistake or in some other species of inadvertence, misunderstanding, a technical malfunction, that's intolerable. Forget about the intentional use of it by people who are, driven crazy by some ideology.
And more technologies are enable a kind of scale of destruction.
And misinformation plays into this picture in a way that is especially scary. I mean, once you can get a deep fake of, any current president of the United States claiming to have launched a first strike, and just, send that everywhere.
But that could change the nature of truth, and then that might change the engine we have for skepticism. Sharpen it. The more you have deep fakes.
And we might have AI and digital watermarks that help us. I mean, maybe we'll not trust any information that hasn't come through specific channels, right? I mean, so like in my world, it's like I no longer feel the need to respond to anything other than what I put out in my channels of information. It's like there are so many people who have clipped stuff of me that shows the opposite of what I was actually saying in context. I mean, the people have like re-edited my podcast audio to make it seem like I said the opposite of what I was saying. It's like, unless I put it out, you can't be sure that I actually said it. I mean, it's just. But I don't know what it's like to live like that for all forms of information. And I mean, strangely, I think it may require a greater siloing of information in the end. It's like it's we're living through this sort of Wild West period where everyone's got a newsletter and everyone's got a blog and everyone's got an opinion. But once you can fake everything,
there might be a greater value for expertise.
Yeah,
for experts, but a more rigorous system for identifying who the experts are.
Yeah, or just knowing that it's going to be an arms race to authenticate information. So it's like if you can never trust a photograph, unless it has been vetted by Getty Images, because only Getty Images has the resources to authenticate the provenance of that photograph. And attest that it hasn't been meddled with by AI. And again, I don't even know if that's technically possible. I mean, maybe whatever the tools available for this will be, commodified, and the cost will be driven to zero so quickly that everyone will be able to do it. It could be like encryption,
and it would be proven and tested most effectively first, of course, as always, in porn.
Yeah, right.
Which is where most of human innovation technology happens first.
In this next clip, James Fox reveals exclusive UFO video in Zimbabwe on the Impulsive podcast.
This is an Impulsive exclusive. Here we go.
I put it together just for you.
Thank you, bro.
Dozens of children said that one or more of the disc-shaped objects landed just beyond the far edge of their playground. The next thing they knew, something was standing next to it.
We saw him standing by the silver thing, and he had big eyes.
He had a big head and big black eyes and was dressed in a black bodysuit.
They were trying to communicate, trying to tell us something. It was something to do with the environment.
I kept getting these thoughts and ideas in my mind of technology. Technology is not helping, technology is bad.
I believe that the children did see something.
I believed them because normally children don't lie.
And if you saw him again, what would you do?
I'll ask him what is he doing on Earth and what does he want with us.
Wow. That's crazy. That's
Isn't that
eerie. Eerie because she made the comment, kids don't lie. Kids understand the concept of of fibbing, especially with independently corroborated stories.
I get goosebumps still to this day after spending over 6 years investigating this case. It just gives me the goosebumps when I see that because you know those kids aren't lying.
Right.
Is there a chance it was a YouTube prank? YouTube, I swear to God. When I was growing up,
it was 1994.
Okay.
YouTube wasn't. Is anybody concerned at the fact that he was warning us that technology isn't good? Is he trying to warn us that we're going to kill ourselves?
I found that claim to be
very scary.
I found it to be a little absurd because if a guy coming down in a craft that can like do anything, right? Go fucking 80,000 feet in the air in a second, like disappear, go 90-degree turns, and he's like, no, technology is bad, but like let me pop in my machine that can do anything at any time and anywhere.
But what if on their planet, that was like the start of their technology, and then they saw technology grow until the point the planet was reduced to ashes, and now they fly around on what they have left of technology, and they're giving us a warning, watch your technology. Be careful of it. Craziest thing about that to me, the kids and the current push of military. It's not the what that's happening. It's not the crazy crafts. It's not the guy with the eyes, because we've heard those stories. It's the who is telling the story. The kids that don't lie, the military people. In the past, stories about aliens have always been told by very high people sitting around lava lamps. One eye is slightly looking in a different direction than the other. Like now, you have highly trained naval pilots. Shout out, go Navy. Pilots, right? Flying jets. Like these people are very smart people talking about these stories, and kids that have no reason to lie about it. So that is what's most shocking to me about the entire story. Do you agree?
The amount of children, I think 66 of them went on camera for this guy, Dr. John Mack, who was a Harvard psychiatrist, and he, with the backing of Lawrence Spelman Rockefeller at the time, because he's at Harvard, and he's looking into this phenomenon, which was a lot less accepted then than it is today. And he went and brought a camera crew and documented, there were 100 witnesses, but 66 of them went on camera. And then, of course, 20 years later, they're all saying the same thing. But a quick little side note, which is kind of interesting, is that Harvard, because of his looking into the phenomenon and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they fired him. And Lawrence Spelman Rockefeller called Harvard University, who was backing the guy at the time, and he said, "Oh, you guys like those Harvard grants that you get from the Rockefeller Institute? Yeah, those are going to be gone if he loses his job." And so they're like, "Okay, he's back on the job now." Like, so that Harvard psychiatrist that flew to Africa, he ended up getting hit by a car. He looked the wrong way, unfortunately, in London. It wasn't a big conspiracy. He just looked the wrong way. It can happen.
Are you sure?
Where's he from?
Well, it was Harvard, so
America.
So
America.
So wait, just let me clarify this. A man who went to the most amazing school in the world couldn't stop, look, and listen.
Hold on a second.
I know.
They go the opposite way.
I've done it
there.
almost. They do.
They go the opposite way there.
Oh, that's true.
Look, stop, and listen.
I've almost done it. I've almost
Wrong
done it
side
in
of the
London.
road.
For
I'm
America.
dead ass serious.
On the Shawn Ryan show, Shawn Ryan and guests talk about weaponizing space, UFOs, and false flag alien invasions.
We're going to cover the weaponization of space or weaponizing space and UFO, UAP, maybe some free energy stuff.
Yeah.
What do you want to kick it off with?
Dude, weaponizing space is a super interesting topic.
Let's go there.
Yeah, so a couple things. So just recently, Russia announced that it's going to pull out of the START Treaty, right?
What is the START Treaty?
The START Treaty was a treaty that was put in place during the Obama years to basically limit and downsize the total number of nuclear weapons that existed between the United States and the Russian arsenals. So a downsizing and modernization and safety protocols, right, for our two different nuclear weapon arsenals. I mean, it was set to expire in 2025. Most people thought it was going to renew, but now Putin just announced he's not going to renew it, right? That came on the heels of Biden showing up in Kiev on President's Day, which in and of itself is kind of ridiculous. I don't know why the U.S. president would spend American President's Day in Kiev. It doesn't honor our history of presidents.
Well, some people claim he's not all there.
But either way, so to counter that kind of snub in the face of Russia, Putin announced that he's going to pull out of the START Treaty. Now, nuclear weapons, there's a treaty in place. The non-weaponization of space is a treaty that's existed since the 70s. Nuclear weapons actually work the way they work specifically because they're supposed to fit within the guidelines of a treaty. So the treaty basically says you cannot put a weapon into orbit around Earth. Nuclear weapons follow that rule because they actually launch in a elliptical pattern to re-engage or re-enter Earth's atmosphere. So they leave from one part of Earth and they enter another part of Earth. They do not make a full rotation around the Earth, so they do not make an orbit. With the idea of weaponizing space, it becomes scary because now there are so many more people involved that were never part of that treaty. China's putting things in space. They were never part of the original treaty. We've got commercial entities putting things in space, right? You've got friggin' Elon Musk is launching Teslas into orbit. So there's all this stuff now going into space that was never part of the original treaty not to weaponize space. And all you would basically have to do is essentially put something into space that's carrying a laser, carrying even a dumb bomb, a dumb explosive, right? All you need is gravity. You can just drop something out of a vehicle in space, and as long as it can withstand re-entry into the atmosphere, essentially you have a space-based weapons platform. So it is scary to think about the future. Modern day weapons, smart weapons, energy-directed weapons, or directed energy weapons, laser weapons, being based in orbit around the Earth.
How many countries do you know of that are putting weapons into space?
I don't know of anyone currently putting weapons into space, but the countries that we know have the infrastructure to put satellites and to put large vehicles into space, I mean, that's got to be pushing up towards 25 or 30 countries. I mean, just some of the ones that jump to mind that I'm not comfortable with putting items into space. Pakistan can launch into space. India can launch into space. Turkey can launch into space.
Iran
can probably launch into space. I mean, if they can't do it themselves, they'd be able to get the know-how from the Russians or the Chinese to be able to do it, right? North Korea might be able to launch into space. They have missile platforms that carry nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of very intense applied mathematics that goes into getting something into orbit and making it stay there. But I mean, these are all countries that have a grudge with someone else that they might consider putting a weapon into space. At least the United States and like Russia, for example, like we have this contentious relationship. Remember, in World War II, we were allies, and then there was the Cold War, and then coming out of the Cold War and in the early 90s, we kind of became friendly again, and then that has slowly kind of dissolved into what it is now. Obviously, exacerbated significantly in the last year. But there's a weird relationship where both of us are really fairly responsible nuclear partners, at least until we see otherwise.
What do you think about all this UAP, UFO stuff? It's being brought up more and more and more, and there's all these conspiracies around it. Everything from, have you heard about the false flag alien invasion?
No.
You haven't?
No, I haven't heard about this yet.
Well, some people think that the globalization is going to occur after a false flag alien invasion, and that's why all these UAP and UFOs are coming up in the media, because they're gonna falsify something that's gonna create enough fear to where we all listen to the one world government.
A false flag alien invasion, meaning some deep shadow government is making us think there's UFOs?
Yes.
Wow. That's convoluted.
Yeah. But why do you think this is all of a sudden just hitting the mainstream?
So
more and more and more.
Yeah. So that I think is an excellent question. UFOs have been something people have been interested in a long time, right? As long as we can remember seeing things in the sky that we can't immediately identify, that was the birth of the UFO. UFOs and aliens, I think if you take a look closely, they're two different things. UFOs are just what's in the sky. Mm-hmm. Aliens are life outside of our planet. It's a nuanced difference, but it's still a difference. The reason people are obsessed with UFOs is because people don't like, cognitively, human beings don't like an open loop in their reasoning process. You don't like it, I don't like it. It's the reason that television series always end on a cliffhanger. It's the reason that books end on cliffhangers. It's the reason that you read emails from email marketers and they always tell you what they're going to tell you on the next email, right? The human brain doesn't like an open loop. We like a closed loop. We like closure. So when there's an open loop, we get fixated on it. So the idea of this mystery of what's in the sky, we get naturally fixated on what could that be? Whether we want to or not, we start theorizing. Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be this? We're trying to close the loop cognitively. That's what drives us compulsively with UFOs. What drives us compulsively with aliens is actually a question of how human beings, how we relate to mortality. You're gonna die someday. I'm gonna die someday. Right now in our 40s, where it's more real to us than it was in our 20s, when we probably both thought we were impervious. But imagine how we're gonna feel when we're 60. Imagine how we're gonna feel when we're 80, right? The closer you get to death, the more intense your questions start to become about, is there life after death? Is there more after death? Am I really just a pile of a functioning biological system, and then I'm gonna die, my system's gonna stop working, and I'm just gonna be dust? Is that really all there is to it? Or is there more? And that question of is there more is what really drives our fixation with alien life. Because what if there is life outside of Earth? What if when we die, our spirits go somewhere outside of Earth? What if there's some technology out there that these advanced creatures may have that could help me prolong my life, right? What if there's some great mystery that I haven't discovered in my 65 years of existence because I'm bored with everything of life, and now the only thing that's new and unknown to me is this idea of alien life. So the question of aliens is really intricately connected with the human existence, with our mortality, right? So you can see that you can separate these two things. One is a question of mortality, one is an open loop of the mysteries of what's going on in the sky. Now, the reason that these two things have always been around, but they've become so intensely mainstream, is because of the UAP report that the government released, 2 years ago now? 2021, possibly 2022? The federal government finally released that they had been collecting information about UFOs and UAPs since the 1950s. Once we heard that the federal government, the CIA, the DIA, NSA, had been actively running intelligence operations against Russia, for crying out loud, to try to collect information about UFOs and UAPs. Now all of a sudden what that did is it lended government credibility to these two open loops that we've been suffering from for so long, which now made it so that maybe in secret you thought they were aliens, but you never talked about it with your friends, or maybe in secret you thought they were UFOs, but you never mentioned it to your wife. Now all of a sudden the government's talking about it. So now everybody can talk about it, which opens up the conversation to everybody who has an opinion, right? And there is real evidence out there that speaks to unidentified aerial phenomenon, and that speaks to things in the sky that nobody can describe. And then you've got the footage from the 2007, the Nimitz and the F-18s that were tracking multiple aerial vehicles that they couldn't describe and they couldn't define. There's a lot of moving parts here that have now made it so that these two natural questions that all human beings have now become so mainstream. We can talk and speculate all we want openly now without having to worry about anybody calling us crazy.
Do you have any theories on what these are?
So I do, actually. I was mentioning to you, I actually just finished shooting on a new television show. And I can't speak about many details, but the show was for a mainstream cable channel, and it was an investigation into the relationship between, potential government cover-ups, potential government secrets, and what is going on that could help describe or explain some of these phenomenon that people have been seeing, whether it's phenomenon in the sky or phenomenon on the ground or phenomenon that people experience physiologically, right? Is there a connection there? And when I get releases to talk about the show, I'm happy to share it all with you. But the point was, we got to actually investigate these questions. We got to look at data, we got to travel, we got to do some experiments to see if we could understand more about what is actually happening with UAP, UFO phenomenon, and how does it relate to the government, right? The US government specifically. What I've landed on is a couple of things. So first, there is absolutely classified information that that's not being shared with us. And that sucks, because without that information, we don't have all the information. We can't make a sound conclusion for ourselves. So there's absolutely some element that's being controlled by the government. That doesn't mean that it's alien tech being controlled by the government. It just means that some bean counter somewhere has chosen these 15 reports to not be shared publicly. Who knows what they say? But for sure, there's some element where we're not being told all the facts the government has. On top of that, you've got real national security concerns. We are trying to develop new weapons all the time, new aircraft, new missile delivery systems, technology that we can't even fathom yet, right? Maybe there's hovercraft technology. Maybe there's, who knows, teleporting technology. There's actual national security secrets that should be protected, which is different than the information that doesn't need to be protected, but they're protecting it anyways. So, but between the government secrets that should be there and the government secrets that don't need to be there, there's a lot of empty holes in our understanding. So in my experience, I've seen strange lights in the sky. We've gone to some of the areas out there where people have reported UFO sightings, historic repeat UFO sightings. I've seen some very strange lights in the sky. I've seen triangle patterns. I've seen lights that jump from place to place. I mean, I've literally traveled, investigated, and seen these things, and I have no explanation for what they are. But they're happening in the sky, in certain places, at high altitude.
Where are you seeing these at?
The Southwest primarily. If you're looking in the skies over Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, that's a really concentrated area there at the Four Corners, Utah. That's an area where there's a ton of concentrated just strangeness, right? That's also an area that's rife with government experimentation. That's where we have all of our experimental flight zones. That's where you have huge areas of commercial air traffic that go through there. Plus, it's wide open, beautiful, clear sky. You can actually see satellites from Earth when you look up in an empty, dark sky. It's incredible what you can see in a normal sky. Most people don't take the time to look up. Most people who do look up, they don't get that kind of a dark sky. They get a sky with a lot of light pollution because they live in or near a city. So you might see 15 or 50 stars, but you don't see the Milky Way. When you see the Milky Way, you see all sorts of things moving in the sky that you never would have imagined you would see. And part of the reason is because so many more people are putting up satellites now. You've got SpaceX puts up satellites, governments put up satellites, commercial entities across the world put up satellites. I mean, for crying out loud, Etesilat, which is a French communications company, Etesilat puts up satellites on an almost monthly basis, building a network of satellite-based cellular communication that they use around the world commercially, right? So there's so much in the sky, people see it all the time. And we don't know what we're looking at. It doesn't pop up on a flight tracker. Nobody announced that they're going to put something in the sky. You just start to see it. Now, a satellite looks pretty clear, right? It's a straight line. It moves at a steady speed, starts in one place, ends in another place. But the stuff that's up there isn't always a satellite. I've seen strange glowing orbs, like balls of light that change direction. I have no idea what that is. Is that an airplane that
You've seen that?
Oh, yeah.
How many times?
Maybe 3, and only in the last 2 months while I've been shooting this show.
Wow.
But what is it? Could it be like an alien aircraft? Maybe. It could also be a domestic aircraft that forgot to turn off its headlight. Probably not, but it could be. It could also be a natural phenomenon. I've learned about things like ball lightning. Have you ever heard of ball lightning?
No.
Lightning, the environmental conditions that create lightning can actually be created on a small microcosm and in a ball. So it's lightning in a ball. It just looks like a light in the middle of nowhere, floating. There's also pre-indicators of earthquakes. There's geological effects that happen that release energy, electromagnetic energy into the atmosphere. When the energy comes up from a fault line and comes in contact with certain conditions in the atmosphere, it creates lights in clouds, almost like a light switch in a cloud. And all of a sudden, the cloud is a light and floating, right? We know these things exist. They've been studied, they've been talked about, but they're not mainstream. So how many of the lights that people are seeing that are strange are these true geological or aerial phenomenon that can be explained, right? Unknown aerial phenomenon, UAP, versus known aerial phenomenon, KAP. Unless you know that ball lightning exists, you're not gonna know what it looks like when you see it. So there's this subset of celestial things, satellites, that we understand. Then there's a subset of just unidentified domestic or unidentified commercial things like aircraft. And then you've got these natural phenomenon like ball lightning. Only after you've gotten through all three of those do you get to the really, really strange stuff. And I mean, that is stuff that I don't know whether or not I've even seen really, really strange stuff because there's so much going on.
On Steve-O's Wild Ride podcast, guest Tom DeLonge talks about how he figured out that aliens are real.
Yeah, I saw it was it like a Deadline article about like you've got like a series based on your book about UFOs, and then now there's like a subsequent series to that.
Yeah, so Legendary picked up my books called Secret Machines. It's like these 700-page novels that are about UFOs, story about UFOs, but it's all government. It's all like military-industrial complex. Think like Area 51, CIA, Department of Defense, and then their counterparts in other countries. And then intermixed with that is some of the things flying around are totally different entirely, you know. And so it's a big deal because this is the true story of UFOs, of what's been going on with our government and everything else. So
I think that there's two things that really strike me as crazy about the developments with UFOs. Number one, it's crazy that the government is all of a sudden just sort of saying, yeah, the UFOs are real. You know, there's like, you know, all this, like the government acknowledging.
You know, we did that. I did that.
Wow.
That's why they're doing that.
But what's even...
I don't say that. I sound like a dick when I say that, but I'm like, that's why. There's a whole story here, but keep going.
It's crazy to me that the government's acknowledging UFOs are very real. And it's even crazier that news comes out and like everyone's like, oh.
Yeah, they're all like, yeah, but interest rates are gnarly and like fucking COVID. You're like, what the fuck? Like that's how a lot of us. So what happened is that book Secret Machines. I wrote that with an author and I started my company To the Stars and we're gonna publish a book. And then when I put it in there, because I studied UFOs for like 20 years, and I was like, I figured out what's going on, not just like the bullshit you read or think. Like I figured out what's going on, and I was like, shit, if I put this out there and open my big mouth, I might get in a lot of trouble. So I should probably go ask for some permission. So I spent like a long time working my way in, and then I got into a group of people, and they brought me in, and I was given all the permission. So then I come out with the book, and I go on national radio and all this shit. Well, apparently that group didn't really talk to another group of some other 3-letter places, and those other places got really fucking pissed because here's this fucking rock star kid like telling the biggest national security secrets that we got, period. And so they came and they were like, we need to know who the fuck you are and who the fuck you're talking to and all this crazy Ed Snowden type shit.
Wow.
And I was like, hold on. And I had to explain that like all this really classified crazy shit, I figured that out on my own. I don't have anyone passing me like...
It's like, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, man. I was tripping balls.
I know. Dude, I'm all sorry. I was stoned one night and I just kind of fucking did a puzzle and I was like, whoopsie. You know? So what happened then was Hillary Clinton was running for presidency against, I guess it was against Trump, and John Podesta was her campaign manager.
Okay.
At the time, he was also senior advisor to Obama. So I was holding conversations with Podesta to get to Obama, and I had 2 multi-star generals from Space Command and the head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, that Skunk Works built Area 51, their elite engineering division. I had them all on this like fucking emails, and we're setting up these conference calls and stuff. Well, Hillary Clinton's campaign got hacked by the Russians, WikiLeaks, and it outed all this shit about Podesta and her. And what happened with that was when all these news journalists were pouring through WikiLeaks to see what spilled from Hillary's campaign, they found these fucking emails with me and Podesta talking to these generals about UFOs. So Wall Street Journal threw that onto the Wall Street Journal. And then I was like, fuck, I'm fucked. And I'm like out there like fucking erasing computers and doing all this different, I didn't know what to do. And at that time, all these other government people that came out.
Let me ask you, why would that be a problem for you? If I mean, there's nothing wrong with exchanging emails with.
That wasn't the issue. The more of the issue was like, the more of the
high
issue.
clearance security.
Just all these guys are holding the secrets of the universe, and it's a much. What would happen in conversations is I just knew things, so I would say it. They might not say something back, but I'm kind of thinking that any of those conversations should not be fucking poured over by anybody that wants to just come in and just like make a name for themselves at the bureau, you know?
All right.
So I'm just like tripping like fuck. And then
I could see that.
Yeah, so what happened though is it gave me all this credibility, because then all of a sudden all these other people in the government knew that I was like hanging around with some big boys, so they all came out and said there's a better way to do what you're doing. And then that's when my company was not just me, it became something bigger. And so the company came out to the public, founded by myself, one of the heads of the CIA, and the head physicist for the UFO program. And then I hired the program director, the guy that ran the UFO program, and then I brought on another like 8 people from the DoD and the CIA. So they're all part of my company. And the first thing we did was take those videos to the New York Times and out the program. And then we went and spent 2 years briefing all the committees in the Senate and Congress and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So now you're seeing hearings. The DoD admitted UFOs were real. The Navy admitted, that's all us. The hearings at Congress and the UAP task force, that's all us. We started all of that. And it all started with me just being a little punk rock kid, just going, I'm going to fucking do this. Not really knowing what I was playing with, you know?
So I mean, it's super impressive, and I love how well you communicate, too. Your ability to tell stories is really...
Well, thank you.
He's a highly evolved being.
I'm just a very spiritual dude, man.
Dude, I love it. Can you help us understand, like, what's the significance of UFOs? Like,
they're not coming from, well, I should say it this way. The significance of UFOs is multiple parts, but number one, it's not what you think it is. It's not coming from other planets. The evidence doesn't suggest that.
Interdimensional.
Yes. And the reason is because time is parallel. It's not linear. Or it's not like we start here and go forward in time. Time is side by side, which means everything in the past and the future is existing in this moment, but within different frequencies. So a civilization that's at the end of their technological cycle could build a submarine that changes its voltage and materializes in that same location, just into our timeline. And then fucking, it's crazy.
That was well articulated. I like that.
Have you ever had any like glitches in the Matrix where like
yes,
time sped up for you, or like I've had that a couple times.
Weird things. So like this, yeah. But when I got more into this, so there's a consciousness aspect to this. Like you have to think of like consciousness is like, it's like the mind of God, you know. It's not a dude in a toga with a crown of thorns making Jupiter, you know. It's like everything you see is one band of frequencies. The highest frequency is light, unified mind. The lowest frequency would be blackness, absence of love, absence of whatever. And physical matter is somewhere right in the middle, right? So you have the ability to tune up higher or tune down lower, and behavior and all these things and time, and it all fucking comes together. But what it means also is that your brain is what's called a transducer. You're an antenna. Consciousness.
That's what I was saying to
Duncan Trussell.
Yeah, Duncan Trussell.
So you create matter, and when you think something, it creates it. And you're not reactionary to your environment. You're actually proactive, and you just don't know it. So it really matters what you choose to see and feel, because that's literally what's being created for you. And people don't know this shit. So when you're like really into some crazy shit, the universe will start creating things, and we just think it's paranormal.
Yeah.
Like, for example, at UCLA, they were studying poltergeist events, and they found out that you can see a book move on the shelf and it scares you. But if you see a book move on the shelf and it scares the shit out of you, that book will then fly off the shelf and try and hit you. So the more scared you get, the more shit starts happening. And they didn't know why. Well, the reason is you're a transducer of your environment. You're an antenna plugging into all these frequencies. And once you go, oh, that book is moving, it'll move. You know, so it's fucking crazy. It's like our universe, it's just not what we think it is. And the whole thing with UFOs is that they're fucking around with us because of that, you know?
Is it not, we're not, I think of UFO as like a vehicle,
right,
which aliens are gonna travel in.
Yeah. And
so should we not be using the term aliens?
Yeah, alien
UFO?
is hard only because it's like that makes us think it's coming from Mars or some shit or a different planet. Right. These are more like entities. These are more like a lot of them are there's a lot. There's like clones that are like just fucking like, you think we made Dolly the sheep and we think that we're like, you think that's all we've done in the 60s, we cloned a sheep? We might be a little bit more advanced than that. Right. So what is something else that's super advanced doing AI and creating things that can fly around and tamper? Well, are they little program bots? Well, where's like the mainframe? Well, maybe the ship is alive in a mainframe, biological organism, but it's metal and whatever, but there's an intelligence to it because it's so advanced.
Okay.
So the theory that they started showing up at the time we did nuclear weapons, they're not here to protect us, they're because that would be like not interdimensional, that'd be from like outer space coming to protect us.
No, interdimensional, because the one thing we found out is that the EMP wave from a nuclear blast kind of travels through multiple dimensions. So it's like that energy is fucking up whatever's in that location, and maybe those people are like, what the fuck was that? Let's materialize into that other timeline and get those motherfuckers to stop. But the reality is UFOs have been around forever. Like, you're talking biblical, you're talking religions, you're talking
the pyramids.
The pyramids, you're talking the Star of Bethlehem is not a star. The sun is big. The Star of Bethlehem is like a little ball of light that 3 dudes on horses followed for days, and it hovered over a manger. So think about that. What is that? Ezekiel's wheels, Fatima in Portugal. All these religious events are always the same thing. And you got to then go, well, what are they doing? What is happening from that? Well, we start cults. We go crazy. We create different religions. We have different belief systems. We get really scared because they prophesize the end of the world. They tell you that if you do something wrong, you're going to go burn in hell for eternity. But if you listen to what that voice is in your head, that's God. So do that. And then someone hears a burning bush and they go and start a religion. It's like holograms and technologies and making people not be together, making us think that there's a dude like Allah or Jesus that created the universe versus source intelligence. There's just like your bandwidth, your fiber optic cable just to like consciousness, which is like the one power that powers the atom, that permeates everything. And we're all from it. But as long as we think it's a dude and that group over there thinks it's a different dude, we're going to hate each other, and we don't really evolve and we don't really grow spiritually.
I'm sure you've heard the story. I went down the rabbit hole with, they brought people to Alpha Centauri to live, like 13 people. And
the Serpo.
Is that true? I mean, what is that different than like what's going on now? Like, are stories like that true? Were they?
I don't buy those. I at all, but I do know some fucking crazy shit where like it makes you kind of wonder about the other stuff. So, for example, there's a document that leaked that described something coming from another planet, and then it hit like a meteor, and then it all came down, and then we retrieved these bodies in the craft and whatever. So I knew this document, and then I was in a meeting, I can't say with who and what it was all about, but I found out during that meeting that was misinformation, the part about the meteor and coming from another planet. And then they leaked the document. And the whole point was for us to keep thinking these are coming from planets and shit. Because it's a lot less scary, to think, well, they're super far away, so it's hard for them to get here, But the reality is like the misinformation placed in documents that are already leaked on purpose is to slowly inoculate us and to be okay with things over time. It's a lot easier to go, well, they're not coming from other planets, they're coming from here, but you already knew about them, so it's not as scary. It's not too much thrown on you at once. But the absurdity that comes along with this stuff is insane, like in the sense of like, dude, I've been told so many fucking stories. There's like shit where things just show up and they look, totally human, and then you turn around and it's not even there, but you're on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic and you're on an aircraft carrier, and it's like there's a human standing there telling you to get the fuck out of the area, and then you turn around and that fucking human's not even there. So you're kind of going, well, did we go to another planet? Like those things suggest. What I would say is there is potential that something like that happened, but I would say 70% of what's in there is probably untrue or something. I think that there are things on other planets, but I think that what's really going on is like space-time, they call it space-time, is because if you light a flashlight, that light travels for infinity. So if you were to, like when we see a star, they always tell you you're seeing like, we're seeing what happened like 30,000 years ago because that light just got here. So we're essentially seeing the beginning. We're seeing the same star, but we're seeing a different point in time than where it's at. But we're looking at it. And that's the idea that I think in space, the way things stretch out with light is the way everything exists all in one moment. So I don't know how much planet to planet fucking transportation's going on. I don't doubt it. But what I do know is the things that are materializing here are doing it with frequency and timelines and stuff. And
when you said the materialize in a different, time, like and describing the parallel timelines, that was so digestible.
Oh, that's cool.
I was able to really like.
On the Lex Fridman podcast number 384, Matthew McConaughey speaks about his aliens theory.
You think there's alien civilizations all out there, intelligent ones, just far on distant stars?
I hope so, and I think it's possible. We have many among us right here. Why? And I go for the why not in that, just to keep that train of thought open to learn and consider, those existential questions. I think it'd be arrogant not to.
There's so many hundreds of billions of planets just in our galaxy.
Just in ours.
I can't imagine there's not life out there. And, but I suspect it's very different, like you said, than we are. And we have to have a humility to open our eyes to how different life could be.
And if and when we cross it, unlike we've had a tendency to do when we try to go with some nation takeovers, I think it would be our inherent glitch to go in believing that any other life form civilization wants to take over territories, to go into it with thinking that, okay, this is an opposition. I think that's a human trait of ours. And to consider that another life form would have an interest that more land or more territory is good for them, I think is a shallow idea. I think of it more like, when I think of heaven, those considerations are not in anyone's mind, heart, or intent in the heaven that I think of. So in other civilizations, these things, I hope that we would just see and would learn that it would be the natural side of welcoming. It wouldn't be a primate response to, no, I have fire and you're coming over trying to put it out, or I have food and you're trying to steal my food. I don't think it would be. I think it's a shallow thought to think that, it's going to be about ownership and we would be trespassing. I don't think they would have a sense of borders as we do.
I just hope we humans are smart enough to detect and to see aliens. Because of how different they are, we often have a very narrow definition of what is intelligence. It's very possible that trees are extremely intelligent if we kind of zoom out at a different time scale, just look at stuff from a bigger perspective that's outside of being so human centric.
It's a great quote that someone told me, this astrophysicist told me this. How accurate it is or not, someone else can argue the validity of what I'm about to say or not, but I thought it really was a perspective grabber for me. Like, look, see, the universe was created at midnight. Humans came around at 11:59 and 36 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I love little analogies that frame, like that make you, oh, yeah, the pale blue dot. There it is, that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Something so relaxing and empowering about that at the same time, and humbling, but confidence boosting, allows forgiveness, allows ambition. I just love the perspective of that picture, to picture it that way in our timeline.
On the Lou Later podcast, Lou reacts to Joe Rogan watching mysterious UFO footage.
Yeah, this was user submitted. Did you see the UFO footage recently?
No.
Joe Rogan was talking about?
No. Show me.
Well, let's listen to what he has to say.
The most recent one, there was a woman who was a model who was on a plane. Did you see that, Jamie? It just got released today. She got what they're calling some of the most compelling UFO video ever. She's flying in a plane, and this silver thing, they freeze framed it. It looks like a flying disc.
A model saw this?
A model. She's just in a plane and filming out the window. And they had seen this thing apparently, and she's trying to film it, and it shoots by the plane.
And I've talked to many pilots who have recounted seeing things and not being able to explain it. It's like, and we just brush that off. Oh, here
Watch
it is.
This. So play this. I mean, what in the fuck is that?
So look at that, and look at that line. It's up on a 45-degree angle. That is, and the speed that it's kind of moving is the speed that I saw something in only at night.
But you have to take into consideration that this plane is moving in a specific direction, and the UFO is moving in the opposite direction.
So it seems faster?
It looks much faster than it actually is. So even if that was like a Mylar balloon, if you're passing it that fast, see that thing, I mean, I don't know what you're getting there. Like, is that distorted? Like, when they're showing that image, that to me looks like it's from another fucking world. Like, if that's really what it looks like, it's actually flying like that.
Make it full screen.
But I don't know if that's a distortion based on the freeze frame of this. You also have to take into consideration what kind of phone does she have? How fast is the camera? Is it able to pick things? Because there's things that can happen with artifacts, with digital artifacts, when things move very quickly. You get like weird lines that might not, but that looks very distinct. Like,
but at a certain point,
play it again.
There's been so many sightings. You've got to be an idiot to believe.
It's so fascinating, man.
I love it.
So whatever this thing is,
it's fast.
I mean, if I was a cynic, I'd say, oh, it's a fucking balloon. But it is weird because it's not moving that fast. If the plane is moving, it's a propeller plane. Let's say, how fast do you think a propeller plane goes?
90.
So if
100.
that was stationary, now let's imagine the propeller plane is going against the wind. So maybe that thing is going with the wind. So whatever that thing is getting blown with the wind current. So it could be a balloon. So if that thing is going 90 miles an hour, just imagine if you're a car, okay, and you're going 90 miles an hour and you're passing someone that's going in the opposite direction on the other side of the highway. They would probably be moving quicker than this. Let's see that again. Back that up again. So watch this thing. So imagine you're in a car, you're scooting along the highway, and there's a car comes around the turn.
I just don't think it's traveling that quickly.
It's probably very slow. It's probably not fast at all. And it might even be stationary. It might just be blowing in the wind.
You're right.
Because if you picture how fast the plane's going and how fast now this is obviously assuming that the wind is going in the direction of whatever that thing is.
So this came out today. What are people saying about it?
But here's the thing: if it's going the opposite, if actually the plane is going with the wind and this thing is going against the wind, then it gets weird. Because then you have to go, okay, well, is that plane going fast enough where it looks like that if it's just stationary or if it's just fluttering in the wind? Because you're passing it. So it's kind of tricky when you get that video and you go, oh my God, it's a UFO. Look at it fly past you fast. Not really that fast.
Well, more importantly than the speed, that's what I saw something. For me, it was just lights at night and they moved at my thing. But that's not but this is something you can't explain.
Sounds like it moved way faster than that.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. I've never seen anything disappear like that. And more importantly, I have a witness.
Yeah.
I was sitting there at the same time, and we were driving because we thought it was a big accident. Maybe there was a train crash or something.
So he's talking about his own UFOs.
No, it's just me and her about midnight, and it was north of Toronto. We were heading up north, but she'll tell you the same story, and we're both not.
Okay. So what do you think it was?
I don't. An object, definitely an object. I mean, it's an unidentified object for sure.
Okay,
but that's about where it ends. Like, I don't. The scale of it is weird to me. It doesn't. It's hard to gauge distance. It seems not that big, and it seems not to be moving. It seems to be moving at exactly the pace of you passing something that's sort of just floating there.
Yeah. It almost looks like a deflated balloon just passing in the wind.
Yeah.
Like
I know, that's probably what everybody's saying.
Not tin. What, the foil. The foil.
Yeah. The party balloon.
Yeah.
I know. But hey man, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's
one can dream, right?
Well, no, I mean, this is just one video clip. You got those Tic Tac video clips, and there's all kinds of video clips of unidentified things until something is, they got to capture it and inspect it and find rare materials not found on Earth, and or we can just go after, Elon can figure out his rocket and we can go find out for ourselves.
On Impulsive, Logan Paul dives deep into UFO conspiracies.
I'm going to be honest with you, none of it's going to matter in 2 weeks anyways, because we're being invaded by aliens. So like, honestly, that's been my biggest distraction on this show today is not the fact that my favorite team's playing in the Super Bowl.
I can't get off the UFO hashtag.
We're at war, dude.
Yeah, I am obsessed with UFOs. I love it. I've seen all of them. And guess what? Something was shot down over Alaska and Canada within 2 days of each other. This thing was flying at 40,000 feet with no identifiable propulsion system and was scrambling jet radars. So they shot it down. There are videos online of what could be perceived as the wreckage being moved across the country by like what looks like police escorts. I am sitting at the edge of my seat waiting to see what the investigation comes back with, what this stuff was in the sky. I've been following UFOs forever. These things are crazy, dude. They can drop from like 50,000 feet to 5 feet above sea level in like 7 seconds. They can go through water at the same speeds they go through the air. They don't obey the laws of physics on the same planet as us. Is it China? Is it an upgraded version of their balloon?
Well, no,
what
because
was that balloon doing?
they got shot down. So they're saying that there was one over China as well. That China shot one down. We actually just shot another.
They just put up a
hold on.
balloon. What is that? That's us too.
That's
we
not,
have.
That's not
that
Chinese.
can't be Chinese.
Well, I thought if I did Chinese, it'd be very racist.
What is that? that was Borat. That was Borat. We just shot down another one over Lake Huron.
Let me see this.
Over Lake Huron.
Lake Huron. That's one of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
The Pentagon says that the unidentified object shot down over Lake Huron had potential surveillance capabilities and was connected to the object seen over Montana.
God dang it. So what? It's more hot air.
So
balloons.
it's just a spy, yeah.
Something is going on.
You know what's fucked up? If we do go to war and it all starts because somebody shot down another man's balloon.
No. Fuck the balloon for a second. I don't care about the balloon. I care about the vehicles that are not obeying the laws of physics on our planet, dude. A small car-sized object with no identifiable propulsion system at 40,000 feet flying above Alaska. What is it, George? What's it doing?
It's a psyops.
Why is it here?
It's a psyops distraction.
Are people not fucking freaked out about this? This is all I think about before I go to bed, dude. One day we're gonna have contact with these beings who are flying this car in the sky.
Imagine they get out, they go, hey, shut up! Shut up! And they just get back and then they take off. We're like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Imagine it's like Drink Prime.
It's a Prime brand. Yo, we should brand those vehicles.
Oh my God, that'd be.
No, but it's gonna be interesting to see what it is, dude. I mean, my guess is it probably is somehow connected to the hot air balloon from up or whatever the Chinese said. From up. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's aliens, bro.
You get caught up in conspiracies?
No, not at all.
I don't feel like you give a shit.
I'm looking at you lot going crazy. I'm there like,
why do you not care, dude?
It is what it is.
No, it's not. I'm with you.
I'm with you.
It's not what it is. Conspiracy.
It is.
No, but what is it? It is what it is. What?
As in, like, it's just life. Just
life from another planet?
I mean, no, I don't think so.
What if it is?
It just isn't, though. If it was, we'd be fucked.
That was my one rebuttal is if this shit really is interplanetary, no shot a fighter jet is going to actually be able to
legit, it would just rebound. It'd be like, the fuck is this trying to shoot?
Well, the logic is if they could get here and we can't even know where they're at, they're way above us in like
this is not a fact, but I would presume that any actual interplanetary vehicle or technology would be able to maneuver around this planet however it pleases, most likely undetectable. So my guess is, this is my prediction, if this stuff does come back as some like hyper advanced technology, I bet it's man-made. I bet it was made on this planet by maybe some government organization or
But you're not gonna ever know what it comes back as. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just gonna say whatever they want to say.
Unless Dr. Greer gets his hands on it.
Years,
no,
bro.
for sure. And I'm
it's still like, oh, what is it? Like how many times are we gonna be like, oh, what is it? Is it UFO? Like, bro, it's been 50 years. Fucking hell.
More than that.
Yeah,
no,
Jesus. Like,
it's gonna be a day. There's gonna be a day. I hope there's gonna be a day.
It might happen as a result of social media. Because back in the day, they could keep everything under wraps. Now, if some little fucking idiot goes out there with an iPhone and takes a picture of something before the government gets there and posts it.
Well, that's how you know it's not a thing. There's too many cameras around for us to not see it now. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we're also seeing that. Granted, the photos are somehow always blurry. And
you don't think it's like propaganda at all?
Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying it could be a psyops distraction for something else.
On the Ranveer show, ISRO scientist reveals the truth about aliens.
I've always wanted to ask an ISRO scientist this. Do you believe in aliens, sir?
Answer is definitely yes.
You believe in aliens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you say definite yes?
So, because many people think that the concept of alien is in the realm of a paranormal kind of, or it's something like a fiction.
Yeah.
But just based on the pure scientific principles, if you look at, because Earth is just one planet, and it's just a sun, the star sun, which is where the Earth is rotating around sun, is one among the billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and you have billions of galaxies in the universe. So the probability of only having intelligent species just in Earth, if you look at all the billions and trillions of planets that is possibly available in the universe, is very, very rare. I am just inverting that probability. That we being only intelligent species in the universe is there's a very low probability for that.
Like mathematically
it is impossible.
Okay.
That just only one planet have intelligent species. So the natural consequence is that in the universe it is teeming with intelligent species.
Okay. Are any of those secret projects related to aliens or some kind of alien life?
I will not be able to aliens is not the means you can say that's not many. There are different kind of secret projects which is better we cannot have it in a public conversations. Yeah. But I'm giving you the most important factor that means acknowledging or believing in alien is not something which is absurd.
Yeah.
And you can get it from I'm giving you authentically from a scientist. I'm saying it's a kind of natural in the universe to have intelligent species like humans. And the second consequence, because your question have another consequence, because whether the aliens are there in our local neighborhood. So that is the most important question. The thing is,
you mean the solar system?
Yes. So the natural, because that is another, because mathematically the existence of intelligent species is given. There are no doubt about it. People who argue opposite seems to be kind of absurd, basically. Now, whether the second question, whether they are available or present in our premises, that is like our neighborhood planets, moon, or in the Earth, like around in the area of Earth. That is what the kind of question where people will be like gray. Like some people will say yes, some people will say no. So even there, so there are two camps, whether they are there or not in our premises. So I have, like, based on my own kind of, it's not nothing, I don't put ISRO here, but my own kind of analysis, independent analysis, like seems that there is a kind of alien, that is intelligent presence other than human presence in our planet itself.
In our planet?
Yes.
You mean Earth?
Yeah, yeah.
And there is some other intelligent...
Yeah, I mean, saying that, like, there is an ambient alien presence all over the universe.
What does that mean?
Means because of the mathematical probability, right?
Okay.
Because you should have the intelligent species other than humans in the universe. That is the natural probability. That is what.
Why did you call it ambient?
Ambient means it's like, it's again ambient basically based on probability.
Okay.
So if you take a sector of the Milky Way galaxy, then there are certain number of habitable planets that is possible in those in that particular sector. And out of that kind of habitable planets, a lot of them can be advanced, civilizationally advanced, and a lot of them can be of the level of human beings. So human being, like our kind of capabilities, if you measure, basically like we have just have the full control. I mean, I would say more or less have full control of the single planet Earth, and we are capable of exploring our stellar neighborhood. So there are categories for the designating aliens based on this their capability. So this is one of the base capability that we say that any kind of sentient beings, that is what I'm including, that's colloquially called aliens, they can have in different levels of technology. So one is they have control of their own planet. Second level is not only they can control their planet, I mean they can navigate around the planet within a day, but they are also capable of exploring the neighborhood, the stellar neighborhood. So we are at that stage. So you can have these aliens in different systems, that is similar kind of habitable planets, which are much more advanced than us, mainly because they started earlier. Because that is one possibility. Again, this is again mathematical possibility that I am talking about, because sun started at the birth of sun happened somewhat like during the middle age of the universe. So the birth of universe, the current theory is mostly between 15 to 13 billion years the universe has expanded and it has originated. Out of that, somewhere sun is a kind of a second generation, third generation star. So there are stars which are born and died much earlier than this current generation of sun. You can think about sun as a like second generation, third generation star. So you have first generation and second generation stars which are older than sun. And so all the habitable planets which are revolving around such a star will have a civilization which have already more advanced than us. So these kind of civilizations, they can like go to the next level of technological advancement. That is not only exploring your stellar neighborhood, but inhabiting the stellar neighborhood.
You mean, for example, in our solar system, creating a civilization on Mars?
Yeah.
Terraforming
Mars, Moon, Mars, and Europa. These are the kind of, even people have decided based on the kind of climatic conditions and the proximity to the Earth. There is a kind of well-defined progression of how humanity will expand into solar system. So the first will be Moon because of the proximity. So Moon is not habitable; it is an empty space, but it is very much close to Earth, because of which you can transfer water or any kind of natural resources between Earth and Moon. So Moon can have a very high probability of being colonized, maybe just at the same time when Mars is colonized. See, Mars have a more habitable kind of an environment with a slightly blue, like not a completely like a similar kind of sky, but more or less very similar kind of sky and a very similar kind of day, around 24 to 25 hours of a day. Everything is there, and axial tilt, exactly similar to the Earth's axial tilt, very very close to Earth. So it has got a very close neighbor, like a very good kind of a climate, which like minus 16 degrees. That is some temperature that you get in Mars, which many people can easily live in India in planet Earth. So Mars and Moon, they can even compete which will be the first habitable kind of environment. And then you have the asteroidal belt region. But there are so many small dwarf planets like Ceres, which have the capability to sustain human life in a kind of next stage.
Which planet?
Ceres.
Ceres.
Yes.
That's a part of our solar system only?
It's like part of the asteroidal belt. It's the largest asteroid. It is spherical. It's more or less like a dwarf planet.
But it's within our solar system.
Yeah, yes. It's like, for example, after Mars, you have an asteroidal belt. Inside that, this is one of the planet.
One of the big asteroids.
One of the big asteroid. So it's currently designated a dwarf planet or asteroid like that.
Okay.
So that kind of those Ceres and then Eros. So many such dwarf asteroids or dwarf planets can also sustain human life, and that entire asteroidal belt is a completely mineral rich, because all kind of minerals which are required for sustaining human life, and also valuable assets for human beings,
like gold
and then titanium, then copper, iron, all this material that are required for constructing a spaceship. See, all these things are available in the asteroidal belt region. So you will colonize, basically ultimately you will be having human habitation in that area as well. Similarly, Mars, and then you have the moons of Jupiter like Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. These all the four planets are capable of sustaining human life once you have achieved that kind of technological capability. And you have some moons of Saturn, that is Titan, which is having even liquid nitrogen oceans, all these things. And this Europa have water ocean, etc. So what I'm saying is, maybe we are drifting from the question.
No, there's no drifting in podcasts. It's like this only.
So what I'm saying is, basically, every civilization or every sentient beings will achieve certain level of maturity, so that they will leave their home planet and start exploring their stellar neighborhood.
Okay.
So that stage is over, and then they will go to the next stage where they start exploring the galactic. That is the entire galaxy they will explore. And at that stage, because it is based on the statistical analysis, the possibilities that there are minimum some 14 to 20 intelligent systems in our own Milky Way galaxy.
Intelligent
means because of the nature, the habitable zones around these planets. On the stars, which is part of the Milky Way galaxy system. There are now currently people identify around 56 such systems. And our search for extraterrestrial intelligence, that kind of SETI and all these people are focusing on those systems to get some signals out of them. So this is happening. This is all already there in place, and people are very seriously considering this kind of things. Just like I mentioned, it's the presence of aliens is a given thing. It's not a matter of speculation. Statistically, it is the natural thing. So ultimately, what I'm saying is, you have at least more than a dozen of systems that can produce a civilization which can advance to the next stage of galactic exploration.
Okay.
So when I say galactic exploration, naturally those intelligent beings will come to planet Earth, because we also is an intelligent being. And any kind of civilization, that is, I use the word civilization because again the same word for aliens. So as an extraterrestrial civilization can sense whether intelligence is there in a planet based on the electromagnetic signals that we release, and we have been releasing it for more than 70 years. So definitely those signals will reach them, and they will be available, present here.
We've been releasing them how? Through satellite dishes?
Because of the natural, the moment you discover radio signals and we started radio transmission, then we are automatically sending out radio signals from planet Earth.
Okay.
And these radio signals will never end. It will keep on spreading to the beyond the solar system at the speed of light.
Okay.
So this will be captured by any intelligent being, and they will aware that there is intelligent beings in planet Earth, and they will come and seek. So I'm coming back to that point, because of which there is a kind of 90, I will always say probability. So there is a 90% probability that some of the intelligent beings are on planet Earth watching us.
Already.
Wow.
God bless you, sir. Thank you for being on the show.
And lastly, Lex Fridman and guest Robin Hansen talk about how the universe is full of aliens.
But let us return for a time to aliens. So you started to define sort of the model, the parameters of grabbiness,
right?
Or as we approach grabbiness. So what happens?
So there was 3 parameters.
Yes.
There's the speed at which they expand. There's the rate at which they appear in time, and that rate has a constant and a power. So we've talked about the history of life on Earth suggests that power is around 6, but maybe 3 to 12. We can say that constant comes from our current date, sort of sets the overall rate. And the speed, which is the last parameter, comes from the fact that when we look in the sky, we don't see them. So the model predicts very strongly that if they were expanding slowly, say 1% of the speed of light, our sky would be full of vast spheres that were full of activity. That is, at a random time when a civilization is first appearing, if it looks out into its sky, it would see many other grabby alien civilizations in the sky. And they would be much bigger than the full moon. They'd be huge spheres in the sky. And they would be visibly different. We don't see them.
Can we pause for a second? Okay. There's a bunch of hard steps that Earth had to pass to arrive at this place we are currently, which we're starting to launch rockets out into space. We're kind of starting to expand.
A bit. Right.
Very slowly. Okay. But this is like the birth. If you look at the entirety of the history of Earth, we're now at this precipice of like expansion.
We might not choose to, but if we do, we will do it in the next 10 million years.
10 million. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. I was thinking more
like
a
short time on the cosmological scale. So that is, it might be only 1,000, but the point is, even if it's up to 10 million, that hardly makes any difference to the model. So I might as well give you 10 million.
This makes me feel I was so stressed about planning what I'm going to do today, and now
you got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. I just need to be generating some offspring quickly here. Okay. So, and there's this moment, this 10 million year gap or window when we start expanding. And you're saying, okay, so this is an interesting moment where there's a bunch of other alien civilizations that might, at some history of the universe, arrived at this moment we're here. They passed all the hard steps. There's a model for how likely it is that happens. And then they start expanding. And you think of an expansion as almost like a sphere.
Right.
That's when you say speed, we're talking about the speed of the radius growth.
Exactly.
Like
the surface, how fast the surface expands.
Okay. And so you're saying that there is some speed for that expansion, average speed, and then we can play with that parameter. And if that speed is super slow, then maybe that explains why we haven't seen anything. If it's super fast,
the slow would create the puzzle. Slow predicts we would see them, but we don't see them.
Okay.
And so the way to explain that is that they're fast. So the idea is, if they're moving really fast, then we don't see them until they're almost here. And
okay, this is counterintuitive. All right, hold on a second. So I think this works best when I say a bunch of dumb things.
Okay.
And then you elucidate the full complexity and the beauty of the dumbness. Okay. So there's these spheres out there in the universe that are made visible because they're sort of using a lot of energy. So they're generating a lot of light, sound.
They're changing things.
They're changing things. And change would be visible
a long way off.
Yes.
They would take apart stars, rearrange them, restructure galaxies. They would do
all kinds of fun.
Huge stuff.
Okay. If they're expanding slowly, we would see a lot of them because the universe is old, is old enough to where we would see
that. Is, we're assuming we're just typical in, maybe at the 50th percentile of them. So like half of them have appeared so far, the other half will still appear later. And the math of our best estimate is that they appear roughly once per million galaxies, and we would meet them in roughly 1 billion years if we expanded out to meet them.
So we're looking at a grabby aliens model 3D sim,
right?
What's this? That's the actual name of the video. What by the time we get to 13.8 billion years, the fun begins. Okay, so this is right. We're watching a 3-dimensional sphere rotating. I presume that's the universe, and then the crappy aliens are expanding and filling that universe with all kinds of
and then
fun.
Pretty soon it's all full.
It's full. So that's how the grabby aliens come in contact, first of all, with other aliens, and then with us, humans. The following is a simulation of the grabby aliens model of alien civilizations. Civilizations are born, then expand outwards at constant speed. A spherical region of space is shown. By the time we get to 13.8 billion years, this sphere will be about 3,000 times as wide as the distance from the Milky Way to Andromeda. Okay, this is fun.
It's huge.
Okay, it's huge. All right. So why don't we see? We're one little tiny dot in that giant sphere.
Right.
Why don't we see any of the grabby aliens?
Depends on how fast they expand. So you could see that if they expanded at the speed of light, you wouldn't see them until they were here. So like out there, if somebody is destroying the universe with a vacuum decay, there's this, doomsday scenario where somebody somewhere could change the vacuum of the universe, and that would expand at the speed of light and basically destroy everything it hit. But you'd never see that until it got here, because it's expanding at the speed of light. If you're expanding really slow, then you see it from a long way off. So the fact we don't see anything in the sky tells us they're expanding fast, say over a third the speed of light. And that's really, really fast. But that's what you have to believe if you look out and you don't see anything. Now you might say, well, maybe I just don't want to believe this whole model. Why should I believe this whole model at all? And our best evidence why you should believe this model is our early date. We are right now almost 14 billion years into the universe on a planet around a star that's roughly 5 billion years old. But the average star out there will last roughly 5 trillion years. That is 1,000 times longer. And remember that power law, it says that the chance of advanced life appearing on a planet goes as the power of 6th of the time. So if a planet lasts 1,000 times longer, then the chance of it appearing on that planet, if everything would stay empty at least, is 1,000 to the 6th power, or 10 to the 18. So enormous, overwhelming chance that if the universe would just sit and empty and waiting for advanced life to appear, when it would appear would be way at the end of all these planet lifetimes. That is the long planets near the end of the lifetime, trillions of years into the future. So, but we're really early compared to that. And our explanation is, at the moment, as you saw in the video, the universe is filling up. In roughly 1 billion years, it'll all be full. And at that point, it's too late for advanced life to show up. So you had to show up now before that deadline.
Okay, can we break that apart a little bit? Okay. Or linger on some of the things you said. So, with the power law, the things we've done on Earth, the model you have says that it's very unlikely. Like, we're lucky SOBs. Is that mathematically correct to say?
We're crazy early. That is,
when early means like
in the history of the universe.
In the history of okay, so given this model, how do we make sense of that? If we're can we just be the lucky ones?
Well, 10 to the 18 lucky, how lucky do you feel? So, that's pretty lucky, right? 10 to the 18 is a billion.
So then if you were just being honest and humble, that means, what does that mean?
It means one of the assumptions that calculated this crazy early must be wrong.
Yeah.
That's what it means. So the key assumption we suggest is that the universe would stay empty. So most life would appear like 1,000 times longer later than now if everything would stay empty waiting for it to appear.
What is non-empty
So the grabby aliens are filling the universe right now. Roughly at the moment they've filled half of the universe and they've changed it. And when they fill everything, it's too late for stuff like us to appear.
But wait, hold on a second. Did anyone help us get lucky? If it's so difficult,
So it's like cancer, right? There's all these cells, each of which randomly does or doesn't get cancer. And eventually some cell gets cancer and, we were one of those.
But hold on a second. Okay. But we got it early.
Early compared to the prediction with an assumption that's wrong. That's how we do a lot of, theoretical analysis, you have a model that makes a prediction that's wrong, then that helps you reject that model.
Okay, let's try to understand exactly where the wrong is. So the assumption is that the universe is empty.
Stays empty.
Stays empty.
And waits until this advanced life appears in trillions of years. That is, if the universe would just stay empty, if there was just, nobody else out there, then when you should expect advanced life to appear, if you're the only one in the universe, when should you expect to appear? You should expect to appear trillions of years in the future.
I see. Right. So this is a very sort of nuanced mathematical assumption. I don't think we can intuit it cleanly with words. But if you assume that you're just the universe stays empty and you're waiting for one life civilization to pop up, then it should happen very late, much later than now. And if you look at Earth, the way things happen on Earth, it happened much, 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 much earlier than it was supposed to, according to this model, if you take the initial assumption. Therefore, you can say, well, the initial assumption of the universe staying empty is very unlikely.
Right.
Okay.
And the other alternative theory is the universe is filling up and will fill up soon. And so we are typical for the origin date of things that can appear before the deadline.
Okay, it's filling up. So why don't we see anything if it's filling up?
Because they're expanding really fast.
Close to the speed of light.
Exactly.
So we will only see it when it's here.
Almost here.
Okay. What are the ways in which we might see a quickly expanding? This is both exciting and terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It's like watching a truck like driving at you at 100 miles an hour. And
right. So we would see spheres in the sky, at least one sphere in the sky, growing very rapidly. And
very rapidly.
Right? Yes, very rapidly.
So we're not. So there's different because we were just talking about 10 million years. This would be.
You might see it 10 million years in advance coming. I mean, you still might have a long warning. The universe is 14 billion years old. The typical origin times of these things are spread over several billion years. So the chance of one originating at very close to you in time is very low. So they still might take millions of years from the time you see it, from the time it gets here. You'll have million years to be terrified of this fast sphere coming at you.
But coming at you very fast. So if they're traveling close to the speed of light.
But they're coming from a long way away. So remember, the rate at which they appear is 1 per million galaxies.
Right.
So they're roughly 100 galaxies away.
I see. So the delta between the speed of light and their actual travel speed is very important.
Right. So even if they're going at, say, half the speed of light,
we'll have a long time.
Then,
But what if they're traveling exactly at the speed of light? Then we'd see them
Then we wouldn't have much warning. But that's less likely. Well, we can't exclude it.
And they could also be somehow traveling faster than the speed of light.
That I think we can exclude, because if they could go faster than the speed of light, then they would just already be everywhere. So in a universe where you can travel faster than the speed of light, you can go backwards in space-time. So any time you appeared anywhere in space-time, you could just fill up everything.
Yeah. And
so anybody in the future, whoever appeared, they would have been here by now.
Can you exclude the possibility that those kinds of aliens aren't already here?
Well, we should have
model.
a different discussion of that.
Right. Okay. So let's actually leave that discussion aside just to linger and understand the grabby alien expansion, which is beautiful and fascinating. Okay. So there's these giant expanding spheres of alien civilizations. Now, when those spheres collide, mathematically, it's very likely that we're not the first collision of grabby alien civilizations, I suppose is one way to say it. So there's like the first time the spheres touch each other, recognize each other, they meet. They recognize each other first before they meet.
They see each other coming.
And then, so there's a bunch of them. There's a combinatorial thing where they start seeing each other coming. And then there's a third neighbor. It's like, what the hell? And then there's a fourth one. Okay, so what does that, you think, look like? What lessons from human nature, that's the only data we have, can you draw
so the story of the history of the universe here is what I would call a living cosmology. So what I'm excited about, in part by this model, is that it lets us tell a story of cosmology where there are actors who have agendas. So most ancient peoples, they had cosmologies, the stories they told about where the universe came from and where it's going and what's happening out there. And their stories, they like to have agents and actors, gods or something out there doing things. And lately, our favorite cosmology is dead, kind of boring. We're the only activity we know about or see, and everything else just looks dead and empty. Yeah. But this is now telling us, no, that's not quite right. At the moment, the universe is filling up, and in a few billion years, it'll be all full. And from then on, the history of the universe will be the universe full of aliens.
Yeah, so it's a really good reminder and a really good way to think about cosmology is we're surrounded by vast darkness, and we don't know what's going on in that darkness until the light from whatever generate lights arrives here. So we kind of, we look up at the sky, okay, there's stars, oh, they're pretty, but you don't think about the giant expanding spheres of aliens.
Right, because you don't see them. But now our
approaching.
Date, looking at the clock, if you're clever, the clock tells you. So I like the analogy with the ancient Greeks. So
yes.
You might think that an ancient Greek, staring at the universe, couldn't possibly tell how far away the sun was or how far away the moon is or how big the earth is. That all you can see is just big things in the sky you can't tell. But they were clever enough, actually, to be able to figure out the size of the earth and the distance to the moon and the sun and the size of the moon and sun. That is, they could figure those things out, actually, by being clever enough. And so similarly, we can actually figure out where are the aliens out there in space-time by being clever about the few things we can see, one of which is our current date. And so now that you have this living cosmology, we can tell the story that the universe starts out empty, and then at some point, things like us appear, very primitive, and then some of those just stop being quiet and expand. And then for a few billion years, they expand, and then they meet each other. And then for the next 100 billion years, they commune with each other. That is, the usual models of cosmology say that in roughly 150 billion years, the expansion of the universe will happen so much that all you'll have left is some galaxy clusters and that are sort of disconnected from each other. But before then, for the next 100 billion years, they will interact. There will be this community of all the grabby alien civilizations, and each one of them will hear about and even meet thousands of others. And we might hope to join them someday and become part of that community. That's an interesting thing to aspire to.